Hey everyone, welcome to the RotoWire Fantasy Football Podcast, the Friday DFS version. A special quick hitter for you. We got a one-game slate this week. It is the Super Bowl week. Andrew and I figured that we would jump on, talk about the game, talk about some Super Bowl props also. You know, a fun weekend to look at the 400,000 props that the books offer, and if you want to bet how long the national anthem's going to go, this is your week. So. Andrew, last week. We made it through the whole season. There was talk at the beginning of the year. We didn't know if we would. So, that's a really good thing. Most of all, I'd like to thank everybody for listening to the podcast all year long. We do greatly appreciate it. We get a lot of nice comments, a lot of nice stuff on Twitter. I've had a lot of good feedback this year, so we do really appreciate that. We know it's been a strange year, so we really appreciate you kind of jumping on board for the ride here. We really like doing it. And I like doing it with Andrew. I don't know if he feels the same, but I like it. It's been a really fun time. So, Andrew, how are you this weekend?
I'm good. I felt bad because I started this conversation before we started recording. Like, boy, I'm actually kind of happy football's almost over, and now you say all these nice things about me. But
I'll think about that comment for probably 6 or 10 weeks.
Oh, weeks? I thought months until we just ramp back up again in August.
I figure weeks, and then I get like a quick respite where I feel good, and then we'll get back up again.
No, we're very appreciative of everybody who's been listening or watching on YouTube towards the end of the season. It's nice to be able to try to help people either beat their friends or beat 800,000 people that they don't know trying to win some money. So we one game left though, Scott, and it should be a good one.
Yeah, it's funny because we do this pretty early Friday morning West Coast time where I am, and like every Thursday night I'm like, I can't believe I have to get up, and then like 5 minutes of the podcast I'm super fired up and like have fun. So it's one of those things. It always is a good time. Makes my Friday good. Hopefully. Everybody else agrees a little bit. So we got obviously one game. We got the Chiefs and the Buccaneers. Really fantastic matchup. I'm not quite as excited as the Super Bowl as I was last year, obviously, with the 49ers in it. But, if you're going to take two teams that I'm not a fan of, this is a really good one and kind of gives me someone to root against, too, which is kind of fun. But real quick before we kind of start into players, you're the guy that writes all the really good showdown articles for RotoWire. Give everybody just a quick rundown of how showdown works, how many roster spots, how that works, etc. Just because there's a lot of people that play regular season and maybe don't play the Monday night or Thursday night game. So give us a real quick rundown, just real quick on how many roster spots, how it works, the MVP spot, that sort of thing.
Yeah. So FanDuel and DraftKings and actually Yahoo just introduced their first single game showdown, or I don't know what they're actually calling it, but Yahoo's in the game now that the Super Bowl's out. But DraftKings and FanDuel continue to be the bigger ones. DraftKings usually has the bigger contests every week, but they're both obviously blowing out for the Super Bowl. The biggest difference between DraftKings and FanDuel is how they use one calls it a captain, one calls it an MVP spot, where basically you pick one player from the game from your roster and they get 1.5 times the points. The difference is that on DraftKings, you actually have to multiply the salary by 1.5x as well. So that creates significantly different lineup decisions because, when all of a sudden Patrick Mahomes is 1.5 times more expensive than he was, you start having to make some more lineup decisions. The reason why that's nice is that it leads to more lineup diversification because, as we'll get into, duplicating lineups in Showdown is something you really want to avoid if you're playing these large field tournaments because splitting, it's very nice to finish 10th in a huge GPP. The problem is if you have the 10th highest lineup, but it's actually the 1200th highest score, then 10th highest score, but 1200th highest lineup, then it's not quite as fun. So, but it's 6 lineup spots on DraftKings, one of which is the captain that you get, and then you can pick anyone else from the game, including kickers. And on DraftKings, you can even play the defenses. There are no defenses on FanDuel, so the player pool gets a little smaller. If you like duplicating, then FanDuel is where you go because with the no salary multiplier for the MVP spot and no defenses, it's just a condensed player pool with limited roster spots. It just leads to a lot of duplicating lineups. So we'll get into it in a little bit. There are some tournaments on both sites where your goal is more to build a unique lineup than it is to build what you think is an optimal lineup. And it's a very weird game. It feels further away from like true fantasy football. So those people who don't play DFS regularly or don't ever play Showdown, the goals are a little different when it comes to winning these big contests. But basically, it's it's fantasy sports with one game. It's our basic salary cap, and you just kind of work from there and build what you think. Build a lineup of how you think the outcome of the game will go, which is a little different than how we play kind of our classic slates. That we obviously we're going to pick players from games that we think are going to be high scoring. But when you only have one game to choose from, you have to really think about how the game is going to be played out, or how you think it's going to play out, or how you think nobody thinks is going to play out, and then you play that way. But basically, you have to build your lineup around that, and basically you get some foundational pieces in your lineup, and the rest kind of just build. I don't want to say it builds itself, but it basically builds itself from there.
Yeah, so a couple things, I don't think you said it, but on DraftKings at 6 guys, FanDuel's actually one less player too. Like there's no that's good. There's no defense, and you don't get the double up of the 1.5 times the salary, but there's 5 positions instead of 6. Also, there's no position, so you can play 2 quarterbacks if you want to. You can play 6 wide receivers if you want to. In this game, you could play 6 wide receivers, and it could work. And then the thing you said is key about how the game. I think you when you pick your lineup, you have to pick your full lineup on how you think this game plays out. So like if you think Tampa Bay wins by 2 touchdowns, like you've got to work it out that you want the guys to get ahead with Tampa Bay, and then how Kansas City would come back. Like you pretty much set up how you think the game goes. If you're wrong, like you're going to lose. But you have to hit exactly how the game goes. You're not going to like just pick the 6 best players. I mean, you can't do. They actually did a pretty good job salary wise this week. I thought they might go a little low, but you can't just play the best 6 players. Yeah. I tried to like put in either Mahomes, Kelsey, or Tyreek Hill at a captain spot with the other 2, and you have like 4,000 something to work with after that per slot. And there are some really cheap guys, though. And the last thing I want to ask you about before we kind of jump into the actual game is that when you look at DraftKings, there you're like, oh my God, there's guys that are $200. Like usually the minimum salary is like $3,000 or $4,000 at a position. Do you consider with your 6th spot throwing in someone like Le'Veon Bell, who might play 8 snaps, or someone like a receiver who might play on special teams and maybe get a lucky play here and there? But do you consider the guys at $200 that are likely as 0 as an A, to be different, and B, to punt and get your other 5 positions maxed out?
So the answer is the answer you kind of have to give for every DFS slate. It depends on the slate.
Yeah, it does.
And depends on the player, but
you're willing to take like a full like possible 0.
Yes. So it all depends on what kind of contests you're trying to win. So the large field tournaments, generally you want to just have as wide of a net as possible, because if you end up with somebody who one of these $200 players, there are a few, but like if you get a one random touchdown, and like random touchdowns happen, and you happen to get the guy who's 200, not only do you get a score that a lot of people don't have, but you obviously get the salary relief to pay up for other spots. So it's definitely a strategy. I remember earlier this year, Deebo Samuel, your boy, came back from injury and was like $600 on a Showdown slate. Yep. And it was like, well, if he plays 10 snaps, that's probably enough, because like, if he catches three balls on this for $600, you're going to get your money's worth. And he ended up paying off that. He had a moderate game, but he ended up paying that off. So if you are playing large field tournaments, you absolutely should be looking at the bottom of that salary pool, both because it allows you to pay up elsewhere, but also those are probably people most fantasy players are not looking to get, and that goes more into this trying to get a unique lineup, or at least trying to roster people that not everybody else has.
Yeah, I mean, I said Le'Veon Bell. He's actually 800, not 200, but same kind of thing. Like Anthony Sherman's down there. Yeah. Keyshawn Vaughn is down there at mid price.
Ricky Seals-Jones.
Ricky Seals-Jones, who I didn't know was playing anymore. Hey, you could get your boy O.J. Howard in for the first time this year. That'd be fun for you.
Yeah,
he's on IR, but just for like old time's sake.
Right, just to really solidify the 0.
So let's jump into the actual game. We've got the Chiefs favored by 3 over the Buccaneers, over under a 56. So I mean, that's a huge number for a Super Bowl, and that's one of the bigger numbers we've seen all year. There's been a couple higher than that, but that's a really big number. These two teams played in Week 12. The Chiefs won 27-24. I think only the 11th time in the Super Bowl history that the teams have played that year and then play again in the Super Bowl. That 27-24 is very misleading in my opinion. I watched that game. I had Kansas City minus the points in that game, so I kind of remember it for a bad reason. But Kansas City was up 17-0 after Tyreek Hill scored every single touchdown in the first quarter. Had 200 yards receiving in the first quarter. That is not a misprint. He had over 200 yards in the first quarter. They're up 27-10 after 3 quarters. And this is one of those games in the second half of the year where the Chiefs, it's weird in football, you don't see it very often, but they took their foot off the gas in the fourth quarter. And they did it all the second half of the season. There's a lot of games they were up. They were like 95% or higher to win the game, but just didn't cover because they just kind of like didn't really step on the other team's neck in the fourth quarter. The Chiefs outgained them 543 to 417. Like that's a little misleading because the Chiefs had a lot more plays. They both averaged over 7.5 yards per play, and the Bucs were actually a little bit higher, is right in the same range. But the Chiefs pretty much did whatever they want against this Tampa D. I mean, they could not stop them. Mahomes was whatever he was, over 400 yards passing. He was at 462, actually. I mean, he was a monster game. Fun game. Like, these two teams can score. Tampa scored over 30 points in 6 straight games, over 24 in 10 straight. My favorite stat that I looked at was Kansas City's had 14 possessions in the postseason. They punted once. They have 11 scores. Like, this offense is rolling right now.
With a hurt Mahomes, supposedly hurt.
Yes, with a Mahomes that had a concussion protocol and the foot injury. I guess before we start, do you have a strong preference on who you think wins this game? How you think this game goes?
So I read Chris Liss's Beating the Book article on the Super Bowl, and he kind of continued a trend of something that he looked into a few years ago, and just that basically, if there is a very, very good defense in the game, they usually cover a win. And the Tampa Bay defense has been really good. And so he ended up taking the Bucs +3. And the caveat was basically like, the only way this doesn't work is if the Chiefs offense is like generationally great. That's my term, not Chris's. Which is tough.
I forget what his term is. I read the article too, but it was something like that. It was the same takeaway.
So that, like, having an offense that's that good, like possibly like one of the best ever. And he looked back and was like the Peyton Manning 80 touchdown year. They went to the Super Bowl and lost to a very good defense. There was another example he had that I don't remember. Probably the Brady year with the Giants, that one of the 2 worst Super Bowls that I've ever seen. The other one was the rematch. So go Jets, by the way.
Oh, there you go. Nice.
For those listening, I'm wearing a Jets t-shirt now for this, because that's what I do for Super Bowl stuff. So anyway, so the problem is that this might be one of the best offenses ever. Like, Patrick Mahomes could be the greatest quarterback ever. Like, not talking about, like, he's obviously playing the current one. Apologies to Joe Montana. But, like, it's possible, like, as a quarterback, he could be the best ever. And so, like, if that's the case, then maybe this very, very good defense, like, it's a good defense now. They weren't like the best all season. And so I have to side with the Chiefs. Just like, I think Mahomes is that generational player. I mean, he obviously is. And this could be a generational offense. And so give me them.
Yeah, it's funny because you look at Tampa Bay and they're really good, but they're not a defense. You're like the 85 Bears, even the Niners. The Niners last year, I think, were a better overall defense, and everybody laughs at that. But like, they gave 31 points to last year, but it was 20-10 with 10 minutes left in the game. Like, the Niners defense the last 10 minutes was horrendous, but the Niners defense the first 50 minutes might be the best I've seen a defense play against a Mahomes offense in the 3 years league. Like, it was, they played that game almost perfectly. They gave that 3rd and 15, and it just kind of unraveled at that point. And Mahomes got rolling, and it was done. But I like, you look at this first game, and the Bucs are playing better defense than they were then. I think the key to that first game, though, is the Bucs are playing better offense than they were then.
Yeah.
So, like, the Bucs are rolling on offense right now. They're a different team than they were in the first half. I didn't think they're going to be great this year. I didn't think their defense was going to be good enough. I clearly was wrong about that. But, like, they're a different team the second half. They've been really good. I think the spread's too low. I think you're going to give me Mahomes -3 against almost anybody. I'm just going to take it because I think you look back at the end of the game, you're like, my God, why would I not take the Chiefs -3 in any football game ever? I mean, they're 16-2 this year. They won the Super Bowl last year. Like, it just feels like one of those games like you could talk yourself into Tampa Bay for a lot of good reasons. They're a very good team. They're a very good defense. They have Tom Brady. They have all these weapons. I just think at the end of the game, if you sit down and you see the final score and you're like, how do I not take the Chiefs -3 against in any football game that they've ever played? And I think that I think the Chiefs will. I think the Chiefs will roll early, and I think they won't. They won't let them back in the game quite as much. I do think the Bucs will score, but I don't think they can score enough to beat Kansas City right now.
Yeah, so I think that's kind of the key is that the way that the Bucs win is like, I mean, so this is how we can go like, kind of segue into how you build your showdown lineup. So if you think that the Bucs win, do you think they win because they shut down Mahomes or because they're able to put up enough points to keep up with him? And I think general thought
it's like 34-31.
Right. So like that's not stopping him. So if you're going in saying the Chiefs defense is not good enough to hold this like improving Bucs offense, then now you start loading up on Tampa Bay offensive players because like you think that they are able to keep up. But ultimately, like I think that's always that's going to be the first thought. Can Tampa Bay keep up with Kansas City and not can Tampa Bay hold Kansas City and then just like eke out enough points?
And they're not like an offense that's going to do the hold the ball for 8-minute drives and run the ball over and over. Like Brady throws the ball, that's how they score, that's how they play. I mean, they do have two running backs they can use, but like I just don't. It's hard for me to see. It's really hard for me to see like a 21-17 game. Like it had to be something weird going on, but I just don't think. I don't think you hold the Chiefs down that much. I just don't see it.
Do you think the Chiefs?
That's the result that would just purely shock me.
Do you think the Chiefs' defense is the worst of the like both teams' offensive and defensive units? Like Kansas City's defense is probably the worst.
Significantly,
right?
Like,
significantly.
But I mean, and that's not an insult. It's just Tampa Bay's defense is really good, and both offenses are awesome.
Right. Do you think the difference between the Chiefs' offense and the Bucs' defense is greater than the Bucs' offense and Chiefs' defense?
That's probably pretty hard to answer because I think the Chiefs' offense is just so good. But yeah, that's probably pretty close, which is why it's a 3-point spread. I mean, it's in Tampa Bay. I don't really think that matters that much, to be honest. I mean, it's in a stadium where it's not going to be that. It's going to be kind of what are they going, like 40% full or 30% full? It'll be a lot of Bucs fans, but let's be real, Super Bowl tickets are going to corporate people, and
it's not right.
A lot of there's going to be some fans who find their way into tickets, but I don't think you're going to have a raucous home field advantage by any means. But yeah, I mean, when you play it that way, yeah, it's probably pretty close, and that's why the spread is 3, and Tom Brady's on the other team, and I don't know, I just don't want to. I don't want to take Kansas City -3 against anybody in the NFL is what it comes down to me.
Yeah, I think that'll be popular. Like I think like building lineups.
I thought it would be popular too, but the line hasn't moved. I kind of thought it would move. I thought at least it'd get to 3.5, and a couple spots it has, but I don't know. I think there's enough attention on Brady and the Bucs defense and people talking themselves to it. I'm a little surprised when the number came out it was that low, and then I'm a little surprised it hasn't moved a little bit.
The first big bet I saw was obviously a week and a half ago at this point. Was $2.3 million on the Bucs +3.
Well, there you go. That keeps the spread down.
That has to keep it down a little bit, right?
Was that you or one of your friends?
Oh yeah, it was a buddy of mine. Yeah.
I figured you're gonna put the house on Tom Brady because that's what you do.
Yeah, that's like 20 of my houses. But
so do you want to start with running backs, even though they're the weakest part of this game? We usually do, but where do you want to start with?
So I think the way that you have to, like I said, the way you have to build your lineups is first, how many people are you trying to beat? So a lot of the content that everybody does is about winning the Millie Maker because winning $1 million is a lot more fun than winning $80 from your friends. But there are enough people who play against their friends. Like I have a home league that goes through the Super Bowl because we play on DraftKings, and DraftKings has contests through the Super Bowl. And this is the first time that some of them are playing Showdown this season because they have no interest in it. But it's the Super Bowl, so we're all going to play. So if I'm building a lineup to beat 10 people, I'm not going to be building that lineup. I'm not going to be using that lineup to also beat, I just had the number here, 653,594 or 3 other entries. Like finishing that highly in the Millie Maker is very tough. Finishing that highly in the Millie Maker with a unique lineup is also very tough. And so you have to get really wacky. It's as simple as that. Like, but you don't have to get that wacky to beat your buddies. So like, that's the first part. If you're trying to beat 10 people who don't play Showdown a lot, they're all going to captain Mahomes, I think, or have him. Like there's just no way around it.
But now you're saying if you're playing the middle, you're not saying that you captain, I don't know,
Ricky
Anthony
Seals-Jones?
Sherman, right? Like you still have to get all the points to. Like you want to go wacky and like be different, but you don't want to not have any of the good players either. Like
Absolutely.
you don't want to leave 22,000 on the table.
Right. Although leaving salary on the table is the easiest way to differentiate, because
I tried to make a huge number so it was extreme. But
Yes.
yes, leaving some salary on the table because everybody's going to try and get exactly close to 50,000 as they can. Not everybody, but a lot of people will
Sure.
they'll try and max out every penny they can to try and get the best lineup.
Right. And so like that's where we have to be different. We need to make sure that we build a lineup that beats everyone, not necessarily scores the most possible points imaginable.
So do you start that with trying to be different, with trying to make a very different MVP captain spot than everybody else?
Yes. And like the way you play these is first or last. Like don't build to min cash. Like 50 percentile is worthless in a tournament like this. But again, you don't have to go crazy. This is not Anthony Sherman captain situation. But like
poor Anthony Sherman is the example for everything.
Right. But like Leonard Fournette,
Yeah.
Mike Evans, I wouldn't do Gronk, but like Cameron Brate. Like Brate's probably a little crazier, but like those are the certain guys that like just getting 1.5 times their points because not many other people are going to do it is where you need to go with those. So. But again, the smaller field stuff, I think it's like people are going to go like Mahomes, Brady, depending on how they think the game goes. Kelsey and Hill will be really popular at that point. And I think after that, like you could pretty much captain anyone else and you'll be like moderately different.
I was going to say before you said it, I think those top 4 guys are going to be a gigantic percentage of the captain.
Yeah.
Like it's going to be, you're going to get Godwin Evans, you're going to get some Fournette, you're probably get someone who wants to play CEH, but like those top 4 guys are going to be all popular in the captain spot. And like when you add up their percentage, it's going to be it's not going to be 100%, but it's probably going to be somewhere around 75 to 80% when you take those 4 together.
Yeah. And I mean, the benefit also of the Millie Maker, so DraftKings is $10, which is lower than the one that they usually run because they want more people to play it. The number of like dead lineups is huge. So like anyone who is moderately intelligently putting a lineup in, who like follows DFS and knows what they're doing, like will beat more than half of this field because there's just so many people who make these terrible lineups that like don't correlate at all, maybe negatively correlate, and we don't have to worry about them. But even if you took half of them out, we still have to beat 325,000 lineups.
For sure.
So again, like think about getting a little weird and but particularly like how you think this game goes. Like if you think Tampa Bay wins, then this is where we should be most likely captaining somebody from Tampa Bay. And if everybody is going to think, I'm going to go with Brady, then maybe we go Godwin. Or if you're like, oh, Godwin seems like it'll be really popular, then go Evans. The idea of captaining Leonard Fournette is so crazy to me. But like weird things happen. Fournette gets hurt. Now all of a sudden Ronald Jones is the guy. Like maybe a Ronald Jones captain works. But like last year, Damian Williams was huge and like mostly overlooked because everyone's like, look at the Chiefs passing game. Oh my gosh, Chiefs passing game. And then it's the running back who like should have won MVP.
Should have won MVP. It's funny. When we talk about some props, I'll talk later. I don't know if Kansas City can win without Mahomes being MVP. After you saw last year, if they weren't going to give it to Williams then, like I don't know when they give it to him. But both the teams are interesting at the running back position because they both, they're both kind of splitting carries right now. We don't have a stud running back like last year. We had Raheem Mostert who was splitting carries, but kind of the guy, and Damian Williams who was mostly the guy last year. But between Fournette and Jones and Clyde Edwards-Helaire and Darrell Williams, like we've got a lot of splitting carries. The pricing on the Tampa Bay guys is wild. Fournette's $7,800. Ronald Jones is $2,200. Like, I think as people get into this lineup, I think everybody's going to scroll down and see Ronald Jones, and they know who that is, and they see him at $2,200. I think he's going to be pretty popular just because that price is so extreme.
Yeah, I mean, if you just look at a lot of projections or just like player props, their rushing totals are fairly close, but the receiving is like the total yards. Like, obviously, the expectation is that Fournette's going to get a lot of the work.
But if you think Tampa wins, I think Jones is your play because they're going to run the ball in the third and fourth quarter. If you think they're behind, it's clearly Fournette. I actually like Fournette a lot in that situation because they're going to dump off to him. He had 7 targets last week against Green Bay. He was 12.55, but 5 catches on 7 targets. You can get 7 targets in a game they're trailing. Like that's massive in a game like this.
Yeah, I think Fournette is an interesting captain play just because it would just be a classic finish to the 2020 season that Leonard Fournette captain would win somebody $1 million. But yeah, I think that price.
You could do it with a Kansas City stack on the, like you can kind of correlate that is that you think Tampa Bay's going to be behind, you think a lot of dump offs. You play one of the receivers, then you play the Mahomes, whatever offense you want for Kansas City. And it kind of works together nicely. It allows you to get more guys in because Fournette is 6,000 less than Mahomes in the MVP spot or whatever it is on DraftKings. Is DraftKings captain or MVP? DraftKings is captain, right?
Captain, yeah.
I always confuse those, and then on the Kansas City side, you got CEH who outsnapped Williams 32-30, but Williams had 14 touches last week in the championship game 2 weeks ago, and CEH only had 7. I think Williams has actually looked good. Like he played pretty well. He was 13-52 against Buffalo. He was 13 for 78 and 4 catches against Cleveland. CEH didn't play in that game, but I just think he's looked like the better guy. The key here is that Tampa Bay is almost impossible to run against, which makes it tough because Hilaire is probably the guy that catches more balls out of the backfield. But if they have a lead, they got to run some clock in the fourth quarter. They're going to hand off the ball a little bit, and they have enough of a passing offense that Tampa Bay has to play that maybe they hit a couple quick hitters with Williams. I think I like Williams more than CEH for the 2,000 cheaper in DraftKings.
I think that's going to be a fairly popular thought.
Probably.
And yeah, like price wise, it is weird that price is so different. Like I kind of understand the Fournette and Jones one, but that one is high enough that I think a lot of people will go to Williams. That being said, like I think it's absolutely in the range of possibilities that Edwards-Helaire gets like everything.
Yeah,
like Williams doesn't gets 3 touches.
And Tampa's really good against the run, but they do allow a league-high catches out of the backfield to running backs. They allow 6 catches per game to the running back. So, I mean, that's the way that, obviously they've been, you can't run against them. You got to figure something else out if during the season. If you're trailing, obviously dump off. So I get the game script kind of works into that. But, I think teams realize that that's the way to get them. And running up the middle is, probably not the best way to do it, although it's different when you have a Kansas City weapons on the outside. They have to adjust to that. If you look at the first game, Tampa Bay played 58% of the time in 2 high safeties. They did 36% of the rest of their games in that. So they definitely changed their defense. A lot of teams did against Kansas City. And Tampa Bay blitzed 42% of the plays this year, 17% in the Kansas City game. So they obviously changed who they are and what they do. Because you can't blitz Mahomes, you're dead. If you don't get there, you're literally dead. He will hit someone for a big play.
Yeah. And
you watch that first game, and they left some big plays out there too. There was a 90-yard touchdown to McCole Hardman. They did just miss. He was beyond wide open, and he kind of threw it behind him. And I don't know if Mahomes was trying to go back shoulder a little bit, but Mahomes, if you watch the replay, Hardman was 10 yards past anybody, and it was an easy pass too. It was just one of those things. So it'll be interesting to see what Tampa Bay does, how much they go with that game plan, or how much they go with their all-season game plan, and just kind of figure that we are who we are. The first time didn't work, so it'll be interesting. But with the quarterbacks, you mentioned that Mahomes will be popular. It's hard to get building multiple lines. If you're trying to build one lineup and kind of have some fun, getting some of these big cons, maybe not the Millie, but some other tournaments. Are you just playing Mahomes and figuring out the rest of the way? How are you handling that situation?
I think a lot of people will play both, in smaller field stuff, and truly small field, 10 people. We talked about how there are big question marks in the backfield situations, and being able to take Brady also takes you out of do I take Godwin or Evans or Brown or Gronk or Miller or Brait? Every passing yard obviously goes through Brady and Mahomes. And so I think there's this perceived safety that you get everything if you get them. We shouldn't forget that DraftKings is a full point per reception. And so every time Brady completes a pass, the receiver gets more points for it than Brady does.
For sure.
But if he does spread the ball around, then generally the quarterback is going to end up being the highest scoring one. And I think there's enough back and forth between Godwin and Evans that it just the easy solution is just let me just play Brady, and a lot of people just play for the easy solution.
Yeah, I think Brady's crazy right now. He's multiple TDs in 10 straight games, 300 plus yards in 6 of those. I know one of those games where he did not throw for 300 yards because you and I both played him that week. It was a good time. In the first game, Brady was 27 for 41, 343, and 3 touchdowns. Did have 2 picks. Was not great in that game, but kind of came on late to get them back in the game. But it was a little garbage time. Even the game was close enough where I wouldn't really call it garbage time. But it was clear that Kansas City was playing a little bit of prevent in that fourth quarter. The key with Brady all year has been pressure and no pressure. He's a 70% completion guy with no pressure, 41% and a 5.3 YPA under pressure. So Kansas City, I think the key to both these teams, if you can get there with 4 guys, because you don't want to fully blitz and leave guys open. But if you can get there with 4 guys, which is what the Niners did last year against Mahomes. Nick Bosa had 12 hurries in that game, which is I think a Super Bowl record and the highest. He didn't have sacks, but he made Mahomes go a second later. And on that 3rd and 15, he was held, so that matters too. Not still bitter. Don't worry.
Not bitter at all.
But in the postseason under pressure, Brady's 6 for 21 for 124 yards and no touchdowns. He's in the way to stop Tom Brady is to get pressure, but he gets rid of the ball so quickly that it's hard to get there. But if the Chiefs can get there, if they can really create some pressure up the middle too, they have strong tackles there. I mean that's the key for both teams. Is I think who gets pressure, and we saw it in those undefeated Brady years. The Giants got pressure on him, and that's how they beat him. And that offense was unstoppable in New England that year. But
you mean the almost undefeated year?
The almost undefeated year, yes. I know you like that. The Chiefs D played pretty well last week. I mean, that was a hot Josh Allen that came in, I say last week, 2 weeks ago. He had a 6 YPA in that game. He was 28 of 48 for 287. The Chiefs D is coming on a little bit too. They've been a different defense in the last second half of the year. They've been a lot better, especially against the pass. So I think everybody talks about the Mahomes, maybe they pull off the gas a little bit in the fourth quarter. I think the Chiefs defense pulled off the gas a little bit in the first half too. I think they are peaking at the right time. I think the defense is coming on a little bit too.
So on DraftKings, you can obviously play the defenses. And I think in a game that has such a high total with so many electric offensive players, nobody's playing defenses.
If I had to and I get down there the price, I think the Chiefs are. I think I'd think about playing the Chiefs because I think that Brady makes a couple mistakes in this game. It's a matter if it turns into anything, but. You even saw it in the playoffs. He gets pressure, he just kind of throws it up for grabs. I mean, he had that play down the right sideline that got intercepted. I forget who it was, but that he just every once in a while, if he gets a pressure, he will kind of duck away and throw the ball away because he doesn't want to get hit. And that's how you get big plays. And in a game where a touchdown is massive for Lane, if he throws a pick six, that's a huge play if you have the Chiefs,
right? Or a special teams return,
the
plenty of props on that.
The Chiefs special teams are way better than the Bucs special teams. That's a little side thing in this thing nobody's looking at. I could see McCole Hardman hit a big punt for sure. You could fully see that. I mean, it's and that's a play that you could double dip on that one too. You could get if you play someone like Hardman, you get the Chiefs D and you get Hardman. All of a sudden, you score 2 touchdowns when on 2 guys. I think Hardman will be pretty popular, but not massively owned. And if you get 2 touchdowns from guys that aren't popular like that, there you go. That's a good start.
Sure. Yeah, I think that's you took that thought right out of my head there with the Hardman combination. But we're talking about differentiating. Ronald Jones 2,200, Buccaneers defense 2,800. Obviously, we don't think anybody's playing the Bucs defense against Mahomes. But wacky things happen. Random fumbles. Scoop and run.
I don't even know how wacky. They had 5 sacks against the Packers last week, and Eric Fisher, the left tackle of the Chiefs, is not playing.
Not playing.
Achilles. The Chiefs have 1 offensive lineman in the spot they started the season. Their offensive line is, granted, it's Mahomes, so maybe it doesn't matter. You don't need to block anybody. He just gets away and throws it 60 yards down the field anyway, which is what does happen. But I don't know if it's that wacky. I think that them getting pressure on him is very conceivable.
Yeah, I mean for how much variance.
Nobody's gonna play him though. You're right.
Yeah, for how much variance there is, you absolutely need to consider both defenses in this game. And frankly, again, with both teams expected to score a ton of points, and generally fantasy defense special teams get their points from turnovers and touchdowns. It's usually not about points allowed. But if there are tons of points expected in a game and everybody's getting all these offensive weapons, playing both defenses is a way to differentiate. And so, a tipped pass that gets picked off, things happen in football all the time, which is why sometimes we see explosive scores, even in games where they give up 20, 25 points. They're absolutely worth considering when you realize that they have upside of offensive players. They have touchdown upside, which is not what you get with kickers who unfortunately, we have to talk about too.
Yeah, before we jump into wide receiver, let's talk about the kickers real quick. Butker's 4,000, Succop is 3,800. Usually we like kickers in a showdown in a game that's going to be, 17-13 or 17-12, and you hope that one team kicks 4 field goals or something like that. This game's tough because you got to think there's going to be a lot of touchdowns, a lot of scores. But, you never know. A team can get stopped in the red zone 3 times, and all of a sudden, Butker can score 12 points pretty easily. Like, that's not – you can have 3 field goals and 4 extra points, too. Like, the teams do, score 41 with a bunch of field goals and random points in there. I'm not super fired up on the kickers this week. I think I like the defenses more. I mean, even in a 35-31 game, if one of those defenses scores a touchdown, like, that's worth rostering. And it's even if they give up a ton of points, you score one of those touchdowns everywhere. That I think I like both defenses more than both kickers, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, when you consider the guys that are in their price ranges, like you said, 4,000, 3,800 on DraftKings, you're looking at Scotty Miller, Brait, your boy Sammy Watkins. Like, if you don't think that they can reach 10 points, like, kickers can reach 10 points, fairly easily. 3 field goals and an extra point gets you there, and like stuff like that. If you were wondering, a Mahomes captain with Brady, both defenses and both kickers, leaves 8,800 on the table.
There you go. Not quite the 22,000 that I did, but that's
we're getting
the way
there.
to go. You make fun of my boy Scotty Miller, scored the most important touchdown in the game last week.
Do you know what his reception prop is?
Gotta be either 1.5 or 2.5.
It's 1.5, and I was like, I looked at that and I'm like, what? That seems low. And then you like look back and the two catches he had last week, including that ridiculous touchdown, was like his most in like 6 or 8 weeks.
If you're gonna play Scotty Miller props, you play longest catch over a certain yard because it tends to be the one shot they take is usually pretty deep. I like
that call.
If I were gonna do him, I would do. Real quick on wide receivers before we get to some props. I know you want to talk about that too. Tyreek Hill, so he's obviously a story. He had 203 yards in that first game, 2 touchdowns. How do you think Tampa deals with this? Do you think they're like, oh my God, he killed us that first game, we need to focus our defense on Tyreek Hill? Or do you think they just play their normal defense? Like, how much of an impact does that first game do you think have on their game plan this week?
I want to believe
it's an impossible question. I get it.
Yeah. I want to believe that they're just going to play like they've been playing. Like, okay. That's what
I would do.
Because when you sell out for Tyreek Hill, then Kelsey has 15 catches, none more than 12 yards, but like they'll beat you either way. And so I think I don't think there's going to be like a huge emphasis on stopping Hill over anybody else. I do think Kelsey will be more popular though. Because of Hardman, because it's a whole season of like, maybe I could get something out of Hardman and I'll be okay. And then Hill has another, 12 for 140. But I don't know. Kelsey's consistency. I think the
Mahomes, Kelsey, Hardman is like kind of where you go and you want to be like, oh, I'll get away from Tyreek Hill. I'll just play Kelsey and then I'll play a cheaper receiver. It seems like a mindset you can kind of get into easily.
Yeah, I think that explains it perfectly, which obviously makes Hill a little. I mean, Hill's still going to be popular. Let's not like pretend you're going to get Hill at like 8%. But like, I think generally Kelsey will be much higher.
11 plus targets per game for Hill since week 9, 6.8 prior to that. They changed we talked about it many times, but they changed how they do it. Tampa Bay's bad against deep balls. They're a really good defense, but they're 27th in the league in completion percentage to passes over 15 yards. It's their one weakness. I promise you, Andy Reid knows that. Sammy Watkins, you mentioned my boy. We've talked about him and joked about him. So Sammy Watkins has played 5 playoff games with Kansas City, where he's actually been on the field and upright, actually playing football. He's never been under 60 yards. Huh. And he's been over 95 yards in 3 of those 5 games. We talk about playoff Lenny. We might be seeing playoff Sammy. Embroider your hats now. 4,200. He seems like he's going to play. He's finally healthy. Granted, Sammy Watkins might play 3 snaps and be done. If Sammy Watkins is healthy, I'm going to read up a little bit more. I think he is. I think he hit 4,200. I think he's going to be less popular than Hardman. I think I like him more for that reason.
I think you explained it well there. I
might go back to Sammy Watkins. Good Lord. We might have to have another podcast afterwards. You can make fun of me for playing Sammy Watkins.
Just to apologize to everybody.
He pulls his hamstring, play 3.
I mean, I was somebody who was playing him trying to play him in cash games earlier this season when he was like 4,300. So I can't like hate on Sammy Watkins, but I think you're right that like if you can, I think more people will see Hardman who actually has been playing, and they'll be like, no, I want that guy because he's cheaper. But I get Watkins.
Yeah, I mean, the key with Hardman, they gave him a rush in each year. You have 50 or 40 or 50 yard rush in the championship game, and he's got 116 total yards. So he's clear. Watkins is a little cheaper. It's 4,200, 5,600, but close enough where I think everybody's
I thought he was over. My bad.
Yeah, that it's close enough where I think that Hardman just it double-digit PPR in 3 of the last 5 games. I think people will go there. Byron Pringle, 1,800.
He's one of those guys. Like I get it.
And he plays a little bit too.
He does.
He's on the field a little bit, which is I think that more that you're getting with a lot of the guys super down there. And we joke about Watkins, but if Pringle played 52 snaps in the game against Buffalo, like that's a massive number for a guy in this offense who's under 2,000. Just takes one blown coverage, and Byron Pringle might win you some money.
Yeah, no, I think he absolutely makes sense. Did we? I guess DeMarcus Robinson has been cleared to practice. Oh my God.
The whole Barber thing was so insane. It was crazy.
Do you think you'd play Robinson?
I would play Pringle first.
Oh, okay. Just like, do you think if you hadn't played,
just because I hate DeMarcus Robinson?
That's what I mean. Like, if you hadn't had like 17 drop touchdowns this year from DeMarcus Robinson, would you play him over Pringle?
Robinson is. I'm looking at Robinson here. He's how much compared to?
He's 400 less than Pringle.
He's 400 less. I'd play Pringle.
Do you think they're just both dead because Watkins is back?
I think Watkins back hurts them both, but I think that Kansas City's going to run plays where they have 4 wide receivers out there. Like the problem is that the passing tree in Kansas City has become very, very, very narrow. I mean, the last second half of the season they throw to Kelsey and Hill, and everybody else is a third or fourth or fifth thought. But yeah, I mean, this is an explosive offense. Should score a lot of points. All those guys can hit a big play. And it's just a matter of, if they roll coverage to Hill and roll the safety comes up on Kelsey and someone runs deep. Like it could be any of those guys, just depends on the play. But I probably go Watkins over Hardman and bring Pringle over Robinson if you're making me make a decision.
I think the way that I'm looking at least Pringle and Robinson, and Watkins is much more expensive. So I don't want to necessarily put him in the group, but it doesn't matter which one you pick. I know that sounds really weird, but there are decisions here that we're talking about, a single game that you could look at a billion stats and you're like, this is why I'm taking DeMarcus Robinson over Byron Pringle. It doesn't matter.
I agree. There's no stats you're going to look at that's going to be a difference. I think I just don't like DeMarcus Robinson.
Right.
I think he'll drop it. I think he'll drop the ball if it comes to him. So there you go. There's my call. And Pringle was super involved 2 weeks ago. Robinson's been on COVID. Who knows what he's been doing? He's probably been hanging out. But you're right. I'm not going to come up with a fantastic case why you should pick Byron Pringle over DeMarcus Robinson. It's just that's a gut feel, and that's your saving salary on. You're getting a piece of a really good offense, and you're hoping for one big play, to be honest.
And that's going to be the thought with a lot of guys on this slate when you start going down.
Sure.
Is it worth me trying to get something out of Tyler Johnson? And it's do I play Johnson over DeMar? It doesn't matter. It really does. Flip a coin, because the process of getting to one of those guys is they're cheap and anything can happen, and that's equal for all of them.
Yes, the amount of energy you spend trying to find a stat between those three is just a waste of your time.
Exactly.
I hate to say that, but plain and simple, you're not going to – with down there, you're not going to come up with something that's be oh, that's why I should play this guy.
Exactly.
Because Tyler Johnson's going to work if Antonio Brown tweaks his knee again, then comes back. It's going to be something like that, or he hits a big play on 3rd and 1, and they play action, and it's Tyler Johnson. It's just one of those things that you can't plan for.
I mean, it could be as simple as a short pass to Mike Evans. He fumbles, and Johnson picks it up and runs it or picks it up in the end zone. Weird things happen, and at that point, in this salary range, the actual decision-making process does not matter. As weird as that sounds. You
want guys that are going to be on the field enough to have one of those freaks things happen, and that I think that's the kind of the extent of how you look at it.
Being on the field is definitely better than not being on the field.
We don't need to talk very much about Travis Kelsey. Just done everything forever. If Tampa Bay goes 2 high safeties, he leads the NFL in catches, yards, and touchdowns against 2 high safety defenses, so that does matter. But He's going to be great. He's huge. He's had an insane run. I want to talk about real quick about the Tampa tight ends. Gronk is 3,000. Brate is 4,800. Gronk has 2 or fewer catches in 5 straight games. Do you get any kind of vibe at all that maybe they try and get Gronk involved in this game?
No.
None. All right.
I mean,
16 end zone targets, so he's live just for that reason that they may get in the red zone and throw to him. That's the play you want with Gronk is either a short touchdown or kind of one big play where they draw something up for and it works. But Brate has 11 catches in the playoffs. He's been way more active.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Like, I think, if you're playing Gronk for the 1 touchdown. Like that's the 2 catches for 17 yards, like doesn't do enough for you. What I thought was interesting, and not to like immediately segue into the player props, Gronk's receiving prop is higher than McCole Hardman's.
Wow. Receiving yards or catches?
Yards. Same
Really?
catches.
Wow. Yeah, I go Hardman all day for yards.
Like you would, right?
Yeah. And I don't think Gronk at 3,000 is a bad showdown play because I think you might get a touchdown, and they probably will run one deep ball to him at some point down the seam or something. It may not work, but they'll probably run that once. But he was 6 for 106 in the first game against Kansas City, if you want some sort of narrative there. But let's jump into a few player props. I know you got to jump out of here. We've got a little bit long on talking about one game, but there are 9,000 player props on everything you want. You could bet the color of Gatorade. You could bet the national anthem over under. You could bet if someone's going to miss a word in the national anthem. But for me and kind of what you and I do with DFS, I really look at player props more than anything. The only non-player prop I wanted to mention real quick was there's one on Bovada. How many times will the Patriots be mentioned? And the number is 2. That has to go over, right? There's no way you play a whole game with Tom Brady where Jim Nantz doesn't say Patriots twice.
I mean,
no way. Or Tony Romo. Like, both never going to say it.
I mean, they could say New England.
They could say New England, but they're going to be like, if they get down, here's highlights of the Patriots comeback against the Falcons. If they're up, here's highlights of the Patriots lost against the Jets. Like, there's no way they don't say it twice, right?
I mean,
unless they're thinking about it,
Pats,
it's the only way they didn't say it.
New England, I don't know.
Unless Romo and Nance are actually thinking about not wanting to talk about New England,
right.
There's no way they'll mention Patriots twice.
Right. I'd be happy for them not to mention them at all.
You're taking the under just out of spite.
Right.
So what about, are there any player props that really jumped out to you that you really liked this week? Just real quick, just for some people that might be having some fun this weekend.
So before that, I just wanted to point out, like, we have a page on RotoWire that shows like all the player props from a few different books. And I know that like most people tend not to like shop around because it's kind of a bit of a pain. This page makes it a little easier. There are plenty on the internet that do this. But there are a number of states now that have legalized on mobile sports betting or even in person still. So if you're fairly new, my suggestion is to sign up everywhere, because everywhere they all have sign up bonuses, and like don't like sign up for one and be like, this is where I'm going to do all of my bets, because when you look at the different player props, they're different at different sites. And so if you're like, well, do I want to take Chris Godwin over 77.5 yards? And you're like, yeah, I do. Well, he's only 73.5. That one was at DraftKings. He's only 73.5 at FanDuel. And it's like, well, take the lower number if you're betting the over, because it's easier to hit that one. So
and you also want to look at how the lines have moved too. It's like some sites, like I looked at Leonard Fournette over 3 catches. I love that. And he was minus 225. I was like, yes. So obviously everybody loves that too. I'm not breaking any news there, but I often shop around it like for the different chalkiness levels, different lines, because there'll be some sites that someone may have hammered that bet and they'll move it up, and some sites maybe it'll be minus 180, and you definitely want to get your money in at the lowest total if you're going over, and obviously the other way if you're going under, but also the best lines.
Yeah, absolutely. Like another example I saw was Tyreek Hill is 6.5 receptions at FanDuel and BetMGM, but it's 7.5 at DraftKings, and like, that's a difference. Like, it's a meaningful difference.
That pretty much locks in 7 catches for sure, because that's the way it always works.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Are there anything like you really jump out to you that you want to take, you want to look at that you really like?
So the one that got me, which I just mentioned, this whole like Hardman and Gronk, they're both at 2.5 receptions. Hardman's receiving prop is 28.5. Gronk's is 29.5. So I kind of liked this Hardman. It's only plus 100 to have more receiving yards at Gronk. But like taking the Gronk side is minus 124.
Yeah.
Like there's just a lot of Gronk love out there, and like Hardman can beat that in one play.
And Gronk hasn't done a thing for like a month and a half. Like it's just, you're right. And Hardman hits one.
The Gronk side just feels a little more narrative than actuality.
Yeah, I agree there. The one that jumped out to me that I really like, and there's 9,000. I mean, and you look at them, everybody knows what they're doing. Like everybody knows, like most of these lines are set at a pretty good number. Where if you like someone, if you like Godwin, I do like Godwin. He's, I think he goes over yards, but like the lines are about right.
Yes.
The one I really like with Godwin, I like Godwin longest catch over 23.5 yards. He's plus 150 or minus 115 there, so it's about even there. Godwin has a 40-plus yard catch in 4 of the last 8 games and a long of 27 yards or more in 4 of the last 5. Like he almost always hits that one big play. It's like he comes out of the slot, but they usually try him on a couple deep balls. I think Godwin he's going to make one big play in this game at some point, and I like the fact that he can take shots. I think Kansas City's going to be ahead, so I like that even more. As I was looking through player props, that was probably my favorite one. Like it just takes one play, and I think he gets there.
Well, if you like him at over 77.5 on DraftKings, you'll love him at over 73.5 on FanDuel.
There you go. Good example right there. I mean, and then you keep looking at, I kind of like Darrell Williams plus 20 rush yards against Leonard Fournette, just because I think Fournette's action will come out of the backfield, and I think that I happen to think Kansas City's going to win, so I think that Williams, even against a tough rush team, will get some carries in the fourth quarter. And I just don't think Fournette will get a lot of actual carries. I think he's getting a lot of action in the pass game, but I like that one. But Godwin longest catch, probably my favorite one. I like Godwin over yards. I like Fournette over the catches too. Are there any MVP picks you like? It's hard because we saw it last year. Like Damian Williams probably should have won, but Mahomes won because he's the quarterback and he's awesome and he made a couple of huge plays, obviously. But I kind of like Kelsey at plus 1,000 MVP, but it's just hard for Kelsey to get there and Mahomes to not. Like he'd have to have 180 yards, 2 touchdowns, and Mahomes throws for like 280 or something like that.
Yeah. So if you're sold on the whoever wins the Super Bowl quarterback will be the MVP, like take the MVP bet instead of the money line. Like the MVP bet, Brady's MVP odds are plus 190, and the Bucks money line is like plus one. What was it? 50?
Yeah, sounds about right.
140.
Yeah, 140 probably.
So like, yes, there's a path that like the Bucks win. I take that back. There's no way the Bucks win and Brady doesn't win MVP. The guy could throw 2 passes. Yeah. And he's going to win MVP. Like, let's forget that.
Fournette has to score like 3 touchdowns, and Brady has to score throw for 180 yards or something. Like, it had to be something. It had to be a weird game for Brady not to win the MVP for them to win.
Right. But so like Kelsey's the one that like jumped out at me, just like the possibility that anybody but Mahomes can. I hate to say this. I think they really don't want Tyreek Hill to win it. Like I think there's a reason not to make Tyreek Hill.
Let's not go too far down that path.
I'm not going to.
I think you're right. I think that they probably I don't think anybody wants to do that post-game interview, really.
Right. And so I think Mahomes wins in that chase. Kelsey, I think, is a little different. Kelsey's plus 1,300 at DraftKings. I think playing off the Clyde Edwards or the Damian Williams should have won it. Like Clyde Edwards-Helaire plus 2,800. If he gets all of the work, then like that seems like a very stupid bet you can make.
Probably still doesn't win it anyway, but yeah.
Good point.
Damian Williams didn't win it last year. Like I don't know how you get there. Mahomes was good, but not Mahomes in that game. And Williams had 2 touchdowns and a bunch of yards. Like if he wasn't going to get there, I don't know how anybody does. Yeah,
it outrageous he didn't win it, but yeah, I just like MVP just doesn't tend to go to guys who like have good games. It's you have to have just an absolutely phenomenal game and both quarterbacks to be terrible in order for you to not win MVP. And so
somewhere Deion Branch is waving at you.
Yeah.
It's like the only one I could really think of. Like it happens. And
didn't Desmond Howard win it?
Desmond Howard won. He had a return touchdown. Yards. Yeah. So there's been a lot of weird guys that have won it. There's been like Malcolm Smith won it. Didn't Malcolm Smith win it for the Seahawks that year that they beat Denver? And famously Larry Brown against when Neil O'Donnell threw him the ball twice in stride. Yeah, but it's going to be in a game like this, a lot of points. It's going to be hard to get it. It's going to have to be like Kelsey would have to be like 11 for 185 and 2 touchdowns or something like that. And Mahomes has to not have 5 touchdowns or something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
It's hard to go away from it. MVP's fun because I like to do props that like you can root for the whole game too. Like, first carry over 3 yards on someone. Like it's like, 4 minutes in the game, that bet's over. Like I kind of like bets that if I'm doing this to have fun. I like ones that, there's a lot of bets that expire in the first quarter or the first catch of the first play of the first touchdown. I mostly like ones that I can root for the whole game.
Heads or tails?
Always tails.
Wow. I was going to say just the opposite.
Always tails.
Who picks tails?
Everybody. It's always tails. The reason you pick tails is because everybody picks heads. You want to know the answer to that question? If it's not minus 110 or minus 115 on each side, take the other side. Whoever the underdog is.
Right, yeah.
Just
take the underdog.
Do they even show the coin toss anymore? Is it heads, tails? Now it's like Chiefs and whatever. Like it's not as fun as it used to be.
Right. It's not like a quarter out of the guy's pocket.
And the tough part on props is usually we get some good inside info on how the national anthem rehearsals have gone, so you kind of get a feel for how long it's going to go. And that's like one of those bets. Like if you know the right person, that's one of those things. Like it's easy to bet, but I don't think there's gonna be anybody at rehearsal. I don't even think they're gonna do rehearsal this year. Like it's just one of those things that's a lot harder than it used to be. Usually, everybody is like figuring it out, and that line moves a bunch on based on how the day before goes. But it might be different this year.
I did see a Gatorade highlight earlier of Andy Reid getting smothered in orange Gatorade, but orange at plus 125 is a favorite right now. So.
Like someone has to know that, right? Like that's one of those things. Like someone in the Kansas City locker room knows what they're putting in that thing behind. So just you got to know the right person.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So. Anything else you want to mention? This game should be a lot of fun. I'm actually looking forward to it. It'd be nice to just be able to sit down and watch the game. I'm rooting for the Chiefs. I think it's funny. My best prop bet is not a prop bet. My best bet on this is Kansas City -3.
I love it. Yeah. Anything but Brady.
10 Super Bowls. It's insane. 10.
Like the worst part is that like 9 is insane, but now we get to 10 and we're just like, whoa.
And it makes no sense that one more makes a difference. So you just say 10. Like I didn't think that was ever remotely even in the realm of possibility. The guy goes to 10 Super Bowls.
Yeah, he can set the record if he loses another though.
Oh, the first guy to lose 4, 3.
He's already lost. He'll tie.
They're 6 and 3, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Jim Kelly lost 4.
Yeah, I was gonna say it must be Jim Kelly because they'd lost.
Actually, didn't they lose 3? Didn't Reich play 1?
No, I think Reich played the playoff game. I think Kelly was back in the Super Bowl. Yeah, I think
whatever it is. I'd love Brady to lose a 4th.
They lost 2 to the Giants, 1 to the Eagles. That's right.
Yeah.
Well, it's the crazy thing is that Tom Brady's won as many NFC Championship games as both Drew Brees and Aaron Rodgers.
I saw that.
I saw that stat. That's just cruel and unusual right there. So,
win more games.
Anyway, thanks everyone for listening to the RotoWire Fantasy Football Podcast. The Friday DFS version again it's been a blast doing it with you guys all year long. Andrew, it's been fun doing it with you. I enjoy spending my Friday mornings with you. It's always fun to chat and see you and kind of talk football. Thanks everyone for listening. If you could please rate or review the podcast if you've enjoyed listening to us all year, please do that. You want to follow Andrew on Twitter. He is at RotoWire Andrew. You want to hear all his fantastic Tom Brady stuff during the Super Bowl. I'm sure he will be praising him over and over during the game.
Of course.
You want to follow me on Twitter. I'll be at Scott Jenstad. I'll probably be talking with the Warriors during the game, so maybe you don't want to do that. But anyway, thanks everyone for listening. We do really appreciate it. If you want to hit us up on Twitter, please do so. Other than that, I hope everybody has a fantastic offseason, and hopefully if Andrew will have me back, I think we'll be back to talking DFS next year. We look forward to it. So everybody take care.